Hello, let's take a look at Remember Tomorrow, which is a role-playing game, or perhaps it's better called a storytelling game with elements of role-playing within it. It's by Box Ninja and Gregor Hutton, who also wrote 316 Carnage Amongst the Stars, which is a game I'll get to shortly because I've written a supplement for that. But I'm digressing. Let's look at Remember Tomorrow. This has such a great concept, and the groups I've played it with, it worked out very well, because everybody bought into the storytelling and the strange different aspects of it. As you can see from the title cover here, it's set in the near future, and that's very much a semi-cyberpunk, although you can make it as cyberpunk as you want. But that's the back cover, people with guns. Contents, chapter 1. So let's zoom in a bit here. Okay, so Remember Tomorrow is a role-playing game for 2 to 5 players set in the near future. Look at the world today and flash forward 20 minutes into the future. Well, I'd say about 10, 15 years, something like that. It's basically set in a nowhere place that they call Somewhere. It's the game, the whole idea of it, as you can see, it mentions hotels and airports there. The whole idea is that it's in a high-powered far future. Your characters and the, quote, things, unquote, that you play are all movers and groovers. You're powerful people, you have high society links, that sort of thing. So you're powerful players in a semi-cyberpunk kind of future. That's the idea about it. Money's not really a problem you concern yourself with unless it's getting another million. Unless that's the sort of quantity of money you're worrying about. So you're high rollers, I suppose, is the way to look at it. And the way Gregor sort of re-emphasizes this and allows you, he says here, see the labels? Your character wears them. You smell the perfume and the aftershave. Brand loyalty on the olfactory nerves. What a great way of trying to tell you how to tell the stories within this game. You want to feel it. What your character's wearing is your character. It's not so much whether you're, I don't know, you're a bitchy bloke or a tough nut that's going to crush somebody's skull. It's more about the persona you present, and that's very much the feel you get from this. So your people are strong, your people are powerful, they are very well crafted, as in you know what you're seeing when you look at them. So killers look like killers, and your operators look like operators. Okay, so and again, it gets a bit, down and dirty and grim at times, and you can tell that. You can go as far into that kind of stuff as you want. But here's an interesting thing, and you start to get an idea of how far in the future this could actually be, because they have what they call dolls or synths, which are artificial men and women, and you can play them as a player character if you want. So they can be out in society, or they can be automatons doing the washing up at home, or they can be used for other purposes because they're fully functioning people for all effects other than them being biological. So, as I mentioned here, you've all got a credit stick or a card, so you don't need to worry about that. Yes, you can have cyberware if you want to do that. Okay, so the game doesn't have a DM or a referee. There is no one person in control of the story, and that's where this game starts to show its real colours, as it were. Instead, you're going to play through a series of scenes, and during each scene, there will be a referee-type person that we call a controller that has final say on how that scene goes. And when you're everyone takes turns at being the controller. So when you're the controller, you're not playing your character. You're setting the scene, you're getting people into positions, you're getting factions into the scene, you're trying to create different types of scene, which you can then all start narrating together, and if you're not the controller, then you can play your character. So let's see, you resolve scenes by rolling dice. Okay, so you can play more than one PC, as I've set up here. Every player will create a character, and that will be one that is reserved just for you. There will also be factions. These could be corporates, they could be gangs, they could be police, they could be politicians or political groups. Any organisation can potentially be a faction within your game, as long as it's something you are likely to interact with. So let's say you're trying to push drugs into a new neighbourhood, then obviously there are going to be opposing factions, opposing gangs, and police factions, and politicians you might want to buy off. And they will all be factions and playable within the game. So you have your reserved PC, your character that's yours. Only you can play that and decide what that character does. But there will also be, as you play through the game, as new characters evolve or pop into the story, they can become playable. So you might introduce somebody as an NPC into a scene because you're the controller, and then in another scene somebody says, I want to pick up that character, and that suddenly becomes a character in a pool of characters that anybody can play. And they can talk through and suggest the operations. And so you collaboratively start telling a story. Now, here, as we go through character generation, you can sort of pick out what sort of character you're going to be. I thought this was interesting, a torpedo, which they describe as you're a killer. And I found that fascinating because that's a term they used to use in the 1920s for a heavy or a hitter. So it's odd that it's come back here in the near future. So you want to have a motivation. Motivations are like envy. What are you envious of? Respect. Who do you respect? Or why do you want respect from other people? And that becomes important because we're going to link those into your character's goals, which is how you do development. So let's just roll on here. Okay. You have 3 primary stats in this. Ready, willing, and able. And your idea, I don't know how to explain this quite so succinctly. There are 3 stats, and when you roll your dice, you're going to roll 3 dice. And then you match those dice best up to your stats. If you roll under or equal to your stat, you get a success. So if you roll you roll 3 dice, and you can assign them to whichever stat you want as well. So you can make the best out of that to get the number of successes. Let me roll on because there's more to this. Okay, so here it goes on to talk about held PCs and pooled. Pooled PCs are shared. And here's an interesting character sheet. So here are your 3 stats, ready, willing, and able. And down here you can see you've got a goal. That is something that your character is working towards. And to do that, you need to tick the ready box here, the willing and the able box is down here. And this is related to die rolls that take place during the game. So when you're playing out a scene and it comes to the die roll section of that scene, you're going to roll the dice, hopefully get under these scores shown at the top here, ready, willing, and able. And then based on the number of successes that you end up with, you're able to spend those on various things. One of those is you're able to tick one of these 3 boxes, provided it moves you toward that die roll, or the events related to that die roll move you towards your goal. So, for instance, let's say I was raiding a gun store in order to get guns. Okay, that would enable me to be ready because I've now got the gun to do my goal, which is to kill Zatumo here. Willpower? Now, that could be something as in literally something to build up your will to do it. Maybe he's hurt you again. And again, that's where some of the great stuff about this comes into play. Imagine you're not the controller, but you're playing another character that's not yours, perhaps a faction, and you do something to downplay, affect, downgrade, get in the way of, screw with your own personal character. That sounds like, why would I do that? Well, the answer is, if through doing that, you can give them a motivation, it could allow them to take a willing to do something now because you've given them another motivation. So again, that's how you can twist the way the game works. And able is, again, that's, are you actually able to do it? Are you trained? Do you have the gear? Do you have the opportunity? Those sort of things. So again, you're rolling the dice. Now, as we're here, I'll just mention, you can see you've got positive attributes here, and you've got negative ones. These can be ticked, crossed out, rubbed out, whatever you want. And these can be burned to give you bonuses on the die rolling mechanics, or they can be burned to reduce the number of successes that somebody else gets. There's a few twists on that theme, but I can't really go into all that now. I don't remember it off the top of my head, to be honest. Right. Let's see if I can find something else a bit more interesting here. Okay, descriptions of those conditions on your character sheet. By the way, I love this pixelated artwork. It's very well done. Okay, goals. Each character, each faction in the game has a goal, and that's what they want to achieve. If they achieve it, they exit the game. Once you have 3 characters or factions that have exited the game, then that's the end of the story. So yeah, you want to get your character out. You want them to achieve their goal, their overall goal, that is. And then they're out of the story, as it were, but that's not you out of the game, because you can still be the controller, you can still operate on other people's characters, or the pool of characters and the other factions. So you continue to play. You've achieved what you wanted for your character, but there's still more to be played out. So here it goes on explaining how you can spend and use those attributes you can pick up. Okay, so factions, I've mentioned them a few times. So there could be an AI faction. I find that quite fascinating. Ronins, pharmacological companies, militaries, idle rich. Wow. Yeah, rich people. They could just be doing stuff for fun that's really screwing with your characters. Lots of fun there. Okay, you can make deals, notes about introductions. Yeah, that's there's different types of scenes, and the first couple of scenes are going to be where you're introducing the characters and factions. There are other types of scene. I don't know where the list for that is. That's just... okay, I think we just saw it there. Type of scene, introduction I mentioned. There's a deal that you're going to do. So there's a scene where they get together and they're going to decide the split, or they're going to decide who gets what, or how somebody gets paid, that kind of thing. A face-off. Well, that says it all, really. And there are a series of mandatory and ability, different ways of framing the scenes in here. I'm just going to flick through here to see if there's anything else. Double crosses, winners and losers. Yeah, each scene there can be winners and losers, and that's part of the mechanic about giving and losing those attributes. You can also gain edge dice that it mentions here. So if you're a scene winner, you can use your success or successes to gain edge dice, and you can have up to 3 edge dice. And what that means is when you're rolling the 3 dice to resolve a scene, you get the option of using edge dice. But hang on, it was quite interesting. Where did it say here? Yeah, if you're a winner using a faction or a non-held PC, that means a pool PC. So you can't get the die if you're playing your own character, but you can use it for your own character later on. And again, that encourages the interaction. And again, another reason why you might try and screw your own character over, because you know that character's weaknesses, but you get an edge die out of it, which you can then use later to, improve the odds that you're going to get to your goal. So scenes have goals as well. What do you want to get out of that scene? Often that will be pushing your character towards trying to get to their main overall goal, but it could also just be to gain an attribute. Lots of different options there. Margin of success is basically how many successes if you've got, and other characters can burn their attributes and things to reduce your number of successes. So you both roll in that case to see who gets the most successes. Starting and ending, yeah. Designer's notes and play sheets. Let's take a look at the play sheets. Okay, so just some random tables here to help get you going. Okay, and play summary. that's really helpful when you first play, actually, because there's a lot of what can I do now? How do I do it? Kind of questions. So that's really helpful. So here we go. So a player character sheet, your ready, willing and able box, and the bits you tick to get you towards your goal, all the attributes, positive and negative. And here we have a faction sheet. So again, factions can, very similar, rather than having 3 stats, they just have 1, but they do roll 3 dice. But they can get negative traits. So you could have burned out cops who just don't care anymore, you know, that kind of thing. Or you could have a political leader who's actually loved by the populace. And there you go. All right, let's just whiz this back to the beginning. Remember tomorrow. It is, I think I'll say it's more a storytelling game than a role-playing game, but you role-play through every scene. You may not be playing one character, you may well be playing some other characters or factions. And when you're playing a faction, you're effectively playing everybody who's in that faction. So you might be playing or describing the parts played by all the police in the scene at a murder investigation. There could be 50 of them there. You'll be controlling what they do. And that's one of the amazing things in this game. You could actually be the person who's laying dead on the floor. And at the same time, you could then, you know, your character's dead on the floor, but you're playing the police who are doing the investigation. It's just wonderful. It's such a break from the normal role-playing thing that it's well worth investing in and looking at. Just for a read, even if you never play it, it can inform how you play other games at the table. Perhaps helping you to envision, you know, what a band of orcs might be doing around a scene. It'll help with your storytelling in that respect. Loved it. I'm going to put a link in the description if you want to go pick it up.